All right, welcome. Formally, this was false flag attack, April 18th, New York City, which I changed the name just for a week after I watched this video, Guardians of the Looking Glass. And if you're watching this video, given my title, hopefully you're familiar with that. If you're not, I'll put a link to their most recent missive, the fourth one, and that's regarding the attack on the 20th of May. And that's what I'm going to look at today. We're going to be looking at the event chart for the United States of America. And if you want to see this chart, it's readily available. It's the one that's Sagittarius ascendant and the 12 degrees. And also put a link to my Facebook page, and I'll put a little article there about today's video with the chart up there for you to see. And I'm here in the Universal Studios in beautiful downtown Cancun, Mexico. So we have a nice breeze coming in. So we've now permanently rebranded my channel, The Warriors of Light Astro Tarot. So I will be doing some tarot readings and some astrology, mostly a personal and basically love, romance, and relationship astrologer. But I got caught up in the Guardian's message because it does offer hope, if you're familiar with it. And what they're saying is, good job. Apparently we stopped the attack for April 18th, being that it was so widely disseminated. Okay, so I'll play along a little bit more. And I said to myself, well, I'll take a look at the event chart with transits for the 20th of May. This is supposed to be the next attack that we need to stop in order to change this timeline and avoid what appears to be kind of an inevitable falling deeper and deeper into this totalitarian technocracy, okay? Where I like to say we're all going to be chipped and dipped, okay? Whether we like it or not. And we're kind of moving more into this sort of soulless future is what I see, being guided into it by billionaires, let's just say, who don't have any elective representation in any government. Just sort of assigned themselves to this task. And so that's why I jumped on the Guardians of a Looking Glass to kind of get behind it and push. So I'm not sorry about that. And well, I did kind of take a look already at the chart, just enough to where I went, okay, yeah, let's talk about it. It could be something here. And so the first thing that I noticed when I look at this chart of the USA for the 20th is this is the oscillating Lilith. It's H13 in Astro. This is the one recommended by Tom Jacobs. Usually what's used is the mean Lilith if you just bring it up in most charts and Astro too. And what that does is give you kind of a fixed position because it does oscillate and move around. And but I kind of agree with Tom from things I've seen, and that this one is the more realistic one. He makes the analogy that the mean Lilith is like a rubber doll of a woman, and this oscillating black moon Lilith is more like a real flesh and blood woman. And Lilith is often seen as a woman's sexual kind of assertive energy, and I personally, that's like yes, could be that, but I think that's kind of a shallow way to look at it. I look at it really as the id. If you look at Freudian psychology, it's that instinct, animal instinct, that's far below the level of words, and I think that in that sense, it does have a lot of meaning. I've found it to be relevant in instances of danger, instances of physical danger. It's a little bit can be like Mars in the way it indicates. It was relevant in my chart when I had a catastrophic autoimmune attack and almost died. And I've seen it in some other charts, very prominent. I remember one woman, I said, when did you almost get murdered, but you somehow escaped by miraculously fighting them off? And she said, how did you know that? And I'm like, Lilith was so prominent. And I said, have you kind of had other instances? And she's like, I have. I keep somehow, and she's a very high functioning, intelligent writer, right? Really, really sharp lady. But she said, I always end up getting involved with these dark men, that, in more than one occasion tried to kill me. So this guy tried to strangle her, in a cenote, okay, in Mexico. I'm in Mexico, right? And she managed to fend him off, even though he's huge. But she had an 8th house Mars. Another giveaway. The 8th house Mars is a hero position for Mars. It doesn't play when it's in Aries. It's the 8th house, Aries Mars. So that's why I'm saying what we have on this day, and the first thing that really popped was this black moon Lilith, which is an indicator of fear and danger and this sort of animal instinct, and it's dark energy. It's exactly on the DC, that's the descendant or the relationship axis of this chart of the United States at 12 degrees 21 minutes. That's the DC of the US, and you have the H13 at 1241. So we have the difference between 1221 and 1241. That's very close orb. That's like 20 minutes of difference, and oscillating, I'm not really that familiar. Perhaps during the day it moves even closer to that. And I think it could be associated with poisons. Pluto can be, as well as Neptune. Neptune here is at 25 Pisces that day. That's exactly square my sun. And it is still going to be conjunct to Mars on this day. So you're looking at Mars again, danger, action. Even just Mars on Neptune could, because, and the reason I mention that is because what the Guardians are saying is going to happen on the 20th of May is again, they were very specific about the 18th, the white panel ban. It had a dirty bomb. It was in the Times Square, New York City. Okay, it was supposed to blow up, kill about 2,000 people, be blamed on Russia. I would point out that this war in the Ukraine, and I'll just let go whatever opinions I have, and there's a lot of opinions flying, in my opinion, a lot of propaganda, that's like for sure. But it sure is dragging on. I mean, a lot of people thought, well, it's going to be like a couple weeks and done. Well, no. And I would just note that the United States of America has done nothing but promote the war. It's like a bunch of teenagers in the junior high school cafeteria when a fight breaks out. And instead of running in trying to break it up, they're all on top of the tables going, fight, 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 and egging it on. And I get that sense in the press conferences. America just persistently disappoints me. But really, seriously, there's no talk about peace. Why is not the president and the vice president over there in these part of these talks, or really pushing these peace talks? But I think apparently they want wars. So I say, if you understand that 9/11 was a false flag attack, or if you still believe that it was 19 Arabs with box cutters and haters for freedom, then click, you're probably gonna go goodbye, because no, it was a false flag attack. Now, what I think is interesting, I gotta go back to 9/11 for a second, because if anybody remembers, get past the freedom fries, it was ridiculous. There was an anthrax attack, because that's what they're saying is going to happen on the 20th, the Guardians. There's going to be an even worse anthrax attacks in DC. And the one on the 20th, they said could kill thousands of people, possibly tens of thousands of people. And they're very specific. They say this will be an anthrax that is, it has a fingerprint, as was the one on 9/11, was finally identified as coming from Fort Detrick, Maryland. Shocker. And the guy that was mostly blamed for it, it turns out for sure, was cleared. He did not do it. No one was ever pegged with that attack. So that attack came when Congress was debating the Patriot Act. Okay? And then where did it go? It went in little letters to congressmen and women, and did its job. My opinion, scared the shit out of them. They all voted up on the Patriot Act, and signed it on through into law. The president signed into law, and so we got not only the Patriot Act, which I think is like a disaster, and obviously it's 2022. It's still, the wars are still hanging on to this day. So it's like Vietnam level wars, and all for nothing. And it clearly had an effect. And I believe that this was a false flag attack back then. By whom exactly, it gets complicated. It's probably not fair exactly to say it's the government doing it, but they had a hand in it. So basically, when they do a false flag, it's to promote something. Usually war, and every war has been started by a false flag. You can look back at World War One, World War Two, Vietnam War, the Gulf War that we went into with the George Bush Sr., the little girl that was crying and talking about little babies and incubators being knocked over by the evil Iraqi soldiers. That never happened, found out later. It's always something emotional that pulls you into the war. Colin Powell, is standing in front of everyone and swearing that there were these weapons of mass destruction. There were not. Clearly there were not, as admitted. So that was a false claim. I'm not exactly sure Colin Powell was a part of that. He might have been duped into believing that himself when he said it. But nevertheless, it was a false flag, and it led us into a war that really accomplished nothing but death and destruction, and it really didn't do anything to protect America. So that leads us then to the 20th, okay? So why they're saying this is a false flag, they want to start this war with Russia. And what the Guardians are saying very clearly is that if we don't stop this attack, and the one thing they ask is for people to get behind this and push, get it out there into the public as much as possible. So beyond the fact that you can watch that yourself, because they say some other things that could be very relevant, but I'm going to speak mostly to this potential attack and looking at the chart of the country, because this is happening in Washington, D.C. Now, the chart here was not in Washington, D.C. This was from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, because that's where the White House was in 1776, okay? But be that as it may, it's happening in Washington, D.C., where the federal government is located. So I think that counts for something there. And so we're talking about a lot more people dying from this attack. And now that I'm kind of following along with the Guardians, it could be because this 18th was stopped. Well, now they have to do this next one, on the 20th, because they're trying to get this World War III started here. And they're saying this will work. If this is done, what will happen is, imagine if tens of thousands of people are killed in the nation's capital by an anthrax attack. And the fingerprint for this, supposedly, according to the Guardians, is from the Russians. So it'll be identified. They'll say, well, it's positively a Russian-made anthrax, which is a weaponized form of this bacteria. So, because they have some of it on hand, so perfect for a false flag. And so then the United States is going to have to retaliate, right? The school kids in the cafeteria stomping and praying for war, well, they're going to get it apparently after this, and some kind of action would then be taken against the Russians, possibly in the Ukraine. I don't know if they got that specific, but so then the Russians it would escalate, and the Russians would retaliate, and we would, out of this event, I believe they're saying, if you listen to it, by June, the nukes start flying. So, is it a bunch of crap? I don't know. But I wanted to look at this chart and kind of see what's there that might be important. So, and now another thing about Lilith that's so important here is that not only is Lilith, exactly on the descendant, and the descendant could speak to foreign affairs, okay? The descendant, I believe, could speak to people. It could speak to other countries. Normally it's the relationship. So, we are the ascendant. That's us, our ego, and we look across this circle at the other, and that's the relationship, the other. And so indicates, like if you look at synastry charts, which is the charts of a couple, particularly in a composite synastry chart, the seventh house often represents the energy of other people outside of the relationship that the couple is in contact with or deals with energetically. And you could get an idea of how the couple then might deal, because the composite is the couple together, whereas the synastry is the two couples looking at how they work with each other, their energy. So I'm not a mundane astrologer. I've beefed up a little bit on it, and I always welcome anyone to get in here and comment on this. But I think what you have here is possibly this is other people, foreign countries. I mean, it could indicate. And the thing about this that kind of really caught my attention is with Lilith, and it's when you have a planet on the angle like that, it gives it a lot of power. So normally with Lilith, you might give it I'd say like 2-degree orb. It needs to be within 2 degrees of influence to be relevant, but you have Uranus here at 8 degrees, 4 degrees away in the natal chart of the USA. And in this case, Uranus is a planet of, things coming out of left field, lightning bolts. It rules everything from space to flights. You could say airline flights, anything to do with technology. And I said during this last attack, if I just look at this and remove myself from the guardians, one thing that strikes me again, as I saw before, what I see with Lilith to Uranus, and Uranus being involved, is this another false flag attack that would be upon the communications infrastructure. And that's the one I feel like it's really coming, whether it's coming here or not. I note too that the North Node here is exactly on the cusp of the 6th house. That's the everyday routine, and the Sun at this time is still in Taurus at 28 degrees, but it's almost on the 7th house cusp. It's close enough. So the 7th house of the United States is Gemini, because we're ascendant is Sagittarius, and the opposite is Gemini. So the exact descendant is 12 degrees, but the 7th house starts before the descendant, which is not unusual. I'm just using the normal chart here instead of the whole houses. So, but I think like the fact that the Sun is at 28 degrees, you could say that it's on the descendant. And the Sun typically in this kind of chart speaks to the leadership. It can speak directly to the president, and it can just also speak to the leadership of the country. I think that's probably a better way to interpret it, from my understanding of mundane astrology. There could be cases when it indicates just the president. And then I haven't really looked at it this closely. I just kind of wanted to do it while we were here. But Uranus is now at 15 degrees Taurus. And that is going to be a 2-degree sextile to the Sun. And so I told this before in the last attack. A sextile is considered a good degree. Astrologers don't like that. We like to say this represents energy that's, you like to think of it more in terms of being either harmonious or inharmonious. And the 60-degree angle of the sextile is known as a harmonious energy. But when Uranus is harmonious to the Sun, and Uranus can be this energy of things coming out of left field. It can be explosive energy, particularly in Taurus here, where it's at fall for so many years. I could see that as being, and it's only a 2-degree orb of sextile, so that works. Um, it could be the energy to me of the leadership having some designs in terms of a false flag. I mean, I could see that with that. And the whole thing with Lilith being on the Uranus, there's levels there. Um, One thing is you have the planet Uranus in the natal chart. It's a square to Sirius asteroid, and the Sirius asteroid's the largest asteroid, and I believe that kind of and it's in the fourth house in the natal chart, so it can speak to like the bread basket, something hitting the bread basket for the country, kind of hitting us in a very difficult place. You also have the asteroid Eris here, at 8 degrees in the chart. It's a very close sextile to Ceres, which to me, with the asteroid Eris, that's the sister of Mars, and represents this energy of it's martial energy, but it's more thoughtful and considered, and kind of energy. So whereas Mars just wants to fight, Eris might want to fight, but it's going to consider things more carefully. But still, I think with that being a very close sextile, it's kind of bringing it in to that energy of Ceres. I mean, you could even stretch it and say in this kind of chart, this, you know, even the DC, there's a loose square to the moon in the chart here, which clearly the people, in this kind of chart. And so bringing this Uranus here into this energy, also of the people, and like I say, it doesn't really, the fact that it's a sextile between Uranus and the Sun, that doesn't exactly encourage me. And at this time, of course, the big elephant in the room is the Pluto return. This is another issue. If you're not familiar with that, this is kind of what got me looking at all of this in the first place. And I was just looking, the Pluto return is really long, takes 250 years to go around the sun and return to where it was in 1776. And it hit that exact on February 22nd. And it's going to be a good couple years. It's not until November of 24 right now that it clears. And some people might argue it goes on a little bit longer. It's almost not until 2025 that it completely clears Capricorn anyway, and goes into your Aquarius to stay. And I would have to think once it gets into Aquarius, it's 3 degrees away, it changes sign, the heat is off at this Pluto return. But nevertheless, clearly we're looking at 2 years here. And I note too that in the natal chart, Pluto is opposite by 1 degree to both the vertex, which is conjunct the part of fortune. And these are mathematical, theoretical points, but the vertex is 2612, 2609, and the part of fortune 2612. And so if anything comes into any kind of aspect to those, that could be, they're tricky to interpret. As often as not, when they're punched with energy in a chart, and nothing happens, but something can happen there. Vertex typically faded events. You think of the part of fortune a little bit like it sounds, can be something fortunate happening. And it's important to say with this Pluto return, it is the energy of transformation and change, and it is in the second house, which is, I believe, represents the Earth. It's Taurus energy. Here it's Capricorn because it's a Sag rising, and that is the energy of the government. So being in the second house, this whole transformation that could be happening with this Pluto return, clearly points to the government. And my sense when I very first saw my first lecture on this years ago, people were already talking about it. I just kind of casually was watching it. And as soon as they said it's in Capricorn, it's in the second house, I was like, but my thought was when this Pluto return is over, late 2024, early 2025, and the smoke clears, I don't think the United States government is going to look the same as it looks going into this, as it does now. To this day, I'm not prepared to say whether that is a good thing or a bad thing. Like, will it change and be better, or will it change and be worse? One of the reasons I'm so attracted to these guardians is because they're offering some hope that if these events are stopped, we can actually change the timeline and ship things in a more fortuitous way for the long-term good of humanity, for ourselves and for our children and our children's children. Instead of continuing on into this technical autocracy where we have this top-down control that becomes global. And it's very real, my friends. I think it's very real. There's nothing pie in the sky, tinfoil hat about it. In my opinion, it's obvious it's happening. There's books about it now. The Great Reset, the president himself recently even has spoken about the New World Order and this kind of thing, about a Great Reset. And so another thing that strikes me on this day that's a little bit even kind of scary is the planet Venus will be at 1957, and the asteroid Charon in the chart of America is at 2008. So that's about a half a degree orb. So in transit Venus, now it's kind of difficult to say with Venus in terms of a chart of a country. I've read some different things, but I see it as being feminine energy, number one. I mean, it's the female in the sky, Mars is the male. It could be the divine feminine aspect. It could be a receptive energy. But clearly on Charon, that's the soul wound of, if you say of a country, it's our greatest soul wound here. And as a soul wound of a country, we decimated an entire people with Manifest Destiny, the population, indigenous population that was here. I mean, that stands out as maybe our deepest soul wound. Slavery stands out as our deepest soul wound. But another thing about America is, like, we've been at war almost every year of our existence. And it's funny because you see Sag as the ascendant here, has to do with foreign countries. And, we've had a lot of interest almost as soon as we got started, in foreign countries. And another thing that stands out in terms of this being an attack is the asteroid Pholus is at 6 degrees. It's a little less than a 2-degree orb to the asteroid Eris over here in Capricorn. Again, where Pluto is, and that Pluto return, again, representing the government. And the asteroid Pholus is exactly the energy of something small triggering something bigger. That's why I brought it up, because what they're saying is this false flag attack in itself, it's not an existential threat, but because it's blamed upon the Russians, it then instigates a greater conflict that could become a devastating conflagration. That's what they're saying. And basically, that if this war happens, it will basically be devastating to the United States. I noticed too that you have the asteroid Sirius. It's the largest asteroid. Again, I believe, like in a chart of a country, you've got to think that Sirius, it represents, nurturing and abundance in grains and cereals and farming, I think. And it's exactly on the Venus that's in the chart of the United States too. And that could just, I gotta say this, I know it's maybe a little controversial, but one of the things that I clairaudient too, but I heard it, so I'm gonna say it, was women need to step up to the plate. And I've been listening to a lot of this sort of woke, mostly right, that's been speaking out, and I just wish everyone would give up their Democrat and Republican cards. It's how they control us. It's the major way Just like just go to the polls and whoever's in office, vote them out. Doesn't matter who they are. That may be the only play we got, in terms of voting, my opinion. But Democrats, Republicans, you gotta go. You gotta quit saying those damn Democrats and fuck those Republicans. That's just totally not helping us at all, you know. But one thing that comes to mind is a lot of men kind of involved in terms of this politics. And I think what we need is this divine feminine energy. One thing about divine feminine, it's receptive and open. And I'll tell you who I think of is Joe Rogan. He's a very macho guy, but he's got a Libra moon. And if you're ever listening to him, the one strength that he has is he listens. He can listen to people. I noticed that immediately. It reminds me of Johnny Carson. He's a good interviewer because he listens and he allows the people to say, he doesn't jump in. It's a very masculine thing to do, talking over people. It's like you're thinking about what you're going to say before they've even finished, and you're not really listening to them. I'm not saying all men do that. I'm a man. I do it. Sagittarius, Mercury, guilty. It's something I'm aware of, so I try to not. But I think, like, in general, there's a message that I would like to just see more women and mothers get involved in all of this. And I think stop saying I don't watch TV and I'm not political and I don't watch the news. And the corporate news is just complete propaganda. But while we still have the opportunity, there are what I call guerrilla journalists out there that are still practicing journalism, and you can listen to them. There's a lot of ways to do this. And I just think it would be helpful. For one thing, I don't think we're going to shoot our way out of this. There's seems to be this sort of very masculine fantasy that, you have your guns and your ammo and your AKs, and that, well, I just dare the government to take my gun. And, I don't think we're going to win this by shooting. I really don't think we're going to win it by voting either. How, I don't really know, which is another reason that brings me to the Guardians of the Looking Glass, because I've thought about this a lot. I've been woke since I was 15, and I've been for years. Only recently did I lift my head up out of the dirt, out of my hole, to really look around when I saw this Pluto return and to see what was going on in the world. And people, it is fucked to the max. I'm shocked by what I'm seeing. It's like the New World Order has done a magnificent job of controlling and decimating and turning everyone against everyone, and I really fear that it's too late. Why, again, I'm really drawn to these Guardians of the Looking Glass, because they're saying that if we can jump in here and stop a lot of this, these attacks, that we can change this and kind of take back the future for humanity, because humanity is going to be extinct, we're going to be really placed into sort of this autocratic technological control, and I think it's just going to really crush the soul. So those are the main things I see. You also have Saturn. Let's see, Saturn's at 25. The planet Saturn in Aquarius at 25 is going to be 1 degree off of Pallas. That's the second biggest asteroid. And that's on the moon. That's 1 degree to the moon of the people. So it means Saturn's only 2 degrees off the moon of the people. And Saturn represents the government. So that's another direct hit here. And Saturn, and also Saturn will be opposite what we talked about at the beginning, Black Moon Lilith, as it is in the natal charts at 27 degrees Leo. So it's going to be 1 degree opposition to Saturn in transit. That's the government, and again, Black Moon Lilith bringing in dark. Black Moon Lilith, it brings kind of that Pluto energy too, which is this shadowy underground and secrets. Okay, so I'm seeing quite a few things here that look patently ominous to me, and I'm sure I've missed some, but that's quite a bit right there. The Venus on the Charon, the Saturn opposite Lilith, and on the Pallas. I see Pallas being very positive energy, the hero energy. But when you put Saturn there, it's like it's trying to crush that. And when Pallas is on the moon is clearly the people in this chart. And now you've got Saturn on the moon within 2 degrees on this day, and even closer because the moon is on Pallas, so that brings that together. And the Uranus thing too is really ominous. When you think of like a regular chart, if I'm looking for accidents or I've looked at death charts, you always look at Uranus, see what's going on, and in particularly where's Mars in relation to Uranus can be relevant here. And let's see, Mars that day is at 26 Pisces, so it's not really relevant there, but it is on Neptune still. And when Neptune and all of this is secrets, and to me illusions, delusions, it could be basically the false flag. That's how I see Neptune in this. And when you put Mars there, the actions, to me that's another hit. It could indicate that these guardians on the 20th of May could be onto something here. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to drag this out too long. I may revisit this, and I do have also a chart of what I call the AI, the artificial intelligence. That's up on some of my past videos here just recently. You can watch if you want. I looked at it vis-a-vis the 18th attack. It does seem relevant. I've looked at the AI and the synastry with this chart of the U.S. So at some point, I got to kind of husband my energy, because I don't want to give too much to this because it's negative, and I really am. I meditate every day, and I'm really trying to be positive. And the thing about this is, guys, if we can face reality and stop just saying like we're just going to have love and light and happy feelings, and keep our vibes high. And that's why I say warriors of light. We got to be warriors of light. We got to step up to the plate. We need to speak. This is what the guardians are saying too. And they're saying like when any of us, when we speak out against the system, it really messes with them. They don't, everything they do is to keep us from, they give us like a script of what we can debate about. And it's usually about politics, which is completely useless, or the Chris Rock and the slapping, or what's the trial now with the movie star and his narcissistic. I mean, it's madness, and this is what they get people, and people are, and I think this, and it's like it reminds me of debating how many angels can stand on the head of a pin. Well, you can have a fantastic philosophical debate about how many angels, but at the end of the day, you're talking about nothing. And you can go into amazingly articulate and elegant arguments one way or another, and you can occupy vast amounts of time, but you just accomplish nothing. So I think we need to keep focused. I mean, right now there's a lot of people talking about food shortages. It's not conspiracy stuff. It's something we really got to think about, and we got to talk about that. This is kind of what I mean. If you're a mother and you care about your children, mothers need to get involved, and they need to say food shortages. What? And get in this game. I kind of just my feeling right now is that if women can more get in this and bring their energy to this in general, this whole like conspiracy thing, if it wasn't just a masculine domain, if we can bring that feminine energy into this, I think it's going to help us. Because I'm going to tell you right now, guys, it's good against evil. If something doesn't give, if somehow we don't get control away from these gargantuan powers that are controlling us. They're far bigger than the governments, that's the thing. I mean, I hate to say it, but if you look at Joe Biden, I mean, I don't think he's running anything. The guy, poor guy, he's shaking hands with the air. It's just so strange to me. I've recently just come back, and I'm not Republican or I could care less about Trump. I believe anybody that can be elected is not going to help you. I know that in my heart. And I'm sorry for Trumpers, and you can hate me if you want, but no, I mean, he was in there for 4 years. Give me the office for 4 years and watch what happens. Come on. No. And so he had his chance. But anyone that rises up is why I'm not a big fan of Elon Musk. It's a whole other thing there. I may do something there. I kind of like to look at Elon synastry with this AI chart that I have. I think it's a little ace in the hole I have with it. It was given to me because I think everything about Elon Musk is about the artificial intelligence. I'm telling you, that's where it's not really. I get it, with the Twitter. The Twitter's it's a reptilian mouthpiece. That's all it is. It's garbage. Is why I don't have anything to do with it. It's just a lot of these very high level, high functioning individuals like to get on there and pontificate, and they will again go on and have a vigorous debate about the presidential race. And if you're just talking about the president, it's nonsense in my opinion. It's nonsense. It doesn't matter who runs, who wins. I mean, that's all complete subterfuge. It's what they want us to think about, so that we're not thinking about other things that are important. Do let me know what you think. I would love if there's other astrologers that could feel free to correct me. I'm not an expert on anything, and I'm not an expert in mundane charts. I have some expertise now, personal charts, mostly what I do. And do follow me if you haven't. Please, subscribe to the channel. If you could hit a like, I really appreciate it. It helps me. And I'm close to 1,000. And when I get to 1,000, I want to start doing some tarot readings, particularly live. I think it'd be fun and be able to kind of interact with people. And maybe I think like live, maybe you can do some charts. I could pull up a chart pretty quick and give a basic read, maybe. So, and I am open to personal readings. I got to be honest with you, my tarot is off the charts right now. The veil is thin, and I feel really good about it. Astrology's really good. I like doing tarot more than astrology because it's more fun to me, and astrology's more like work. But it is a work that I love to do. Hit me up if you're interested in either one of those. I love to work with you. And I know it's a lot to ask to share, but do share this. If you think of any groups to share this on, particularly if they're astrology groups, like if I share it, it's spam. But if you share it, maybe they'll take it. And I would love to get this out there, even if they're probably going to hammer me and say, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Okay, I'll listen because I want to learn. I think, that's the important thing. So bring it. That's what I say. I say the same thing to all of that I say to the universe. Just throw it in here hard and fast as you can, universe, and let me worry about hitting it. Okay? So thank you guys. Bye.